So far in this module, we covered various types of Facebook ads, such as story-based ads, or as offer-based ads, or scarcity-based ads, social proof ads. But obviously inside those images, it's not just text. You'll also have to either add an image or add a video so people can actually watch a video inside of that ad. Now, in this particular video, I want to dive deeper into the images to be used for your image-based ads. So in another video, I'm going to show you how to actually set it up inside of your Facebook ads account. But in this video, I want to go into the creation of your image. So where do you get your image? Some rules of thumbs. How do you make sure it grabs the user's attention? Some mistakes you should be avoiding. Some inspiration of what kind of ads or images, you should actually you could actually create. And also, obviously, like I said, how to create the actual images. So first of all, some rules of thumb that I want to go through for your images. So the best, what I recommend you, is to have the image dimensions of 1200 pixels wide by 628 pixels high. That's just a good way. That way it will look good on Facebook. You can also increase that, for example, but at least it has to have the same dimension. So you could also double that. So you could also use 2400 pixels if that's what you prefer, but that means you'll have to double this one as well. Now also there's some confusion maybe about the 20% rule. So earlier on, not anymore, but earlier on, Facebook did not allow you to have more than 20% of your image to be text. So you couldn't have an image full with text, for example. They would not allow it. These days, they do allow it. However, it's not as recommended because Facebook basically says that the more text you have on your actual image, the less favorable they're going to be towards it. Now, this means that we can actually run images or Facebook ads with images that have text on it, which is the good sign, but it doesn't always work well. However, in my experience, it's still a good thing to actually add some text, but you can obviously always test things around to see if you have an image with text or without. So as you will be creating your images for your ads, it's always good to create one variation, for example, with text on it, and the other one where you just delete the actual text, so you can actually see which one works best. And obviously later on in the course we'll actually cover how to actually test which one works, what to pay attention to, how to set all that up, etc., etc. So we'll get into that later on. Another thing that I want to make clear as well is that you should not steal images. It's not a good thing to steal. So that's why I'll be covering various sources where you can get images from that you can use legally as well. Some stock websites where you can get images that have no rights, or at least you will get the rights to actually use them in your ads as well. So that's where we're going to go into first, where to get images. And I would actually recommend these two sites, pexels.com and unsplash.com. Both sites have a big database of various images that you can use, so you can just search for an image that is related to you or to your business on both sides. So right here you got to search for Unsplash, and right here you can search on Pexels, and this way you'll be able to get images that you can use inside of your ads. Now, as you will be starting to create your images for your ads, you obviously want to take into account what will grab the attention of your audience. I mean, if someone is going to scroll on Facebook and they scroll down all the all their posts to their Facebook friends, etc., and they suddenly see your Facebook ad, you want to make sure that you grab their attention for a quick second and they'll actually pay attention to what you have to say. In other words, your image has to actually stand out. Now, how do you grab the attention? Now, the first thing I want to make clear and stress out that you should definitely stand out with your ad, but have to do it within reason. If I go back a couple years ago, we would definitely get away with, for example, something like this, where we would add a rectangular red banner around the image. Now, I'm not saying that Facebook would immediately disapprove it, but overall, it's a bad user experience for the Facebook audience, and that's why, in the end of the day, it's going to be bad for you as an advertiser as well. Because if someone is going to see this, it's clearly an ad, and there's just a higher chance that people will actually click on that they want to hide this post because they don't actually like it. So don't do a big red rectangular around your image, for example, because that way you're definitely, it's not adding to the Facebook experience from a user point of view. So don't try to do that. But there's definitely different ways you can still do that look better, because this obviously is not very well designed. So one obviously thing to do is play with colors. So Here you see some examples. Let me just make them slightly bigger. So this one, for example, they use bright colors, and that's one way. Like if you would scroll down, it's orange, 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 everything is orange, it's bright, it actually stands out right away. And here what you'll see that this ad has done is they actually use contrasting colors. So this blue with green, and then this background immediately, like boom, it's in your face. It's not blending into the actual page, but it's definitely standing out just based on color. But there's obviously different ways you can do. I mean, if you have a very clear value proposition, something that you stand for, that you are known for, let me just make these bigger as well. For example, this top example, they have a free trial, and that's what I want to convey right away. So they make that a really big free trial. And as I said before, the 20% ad rule, you can still get away with it, and it might still work. And this is a good example where it actually will probably work. So having your value proposition real big and making that clear is actually a good way to grab the attention as well. Same thing in this ad, buy two and get free shipping right away. That's a clear value proposition, and they're making that clear right away. And you'll see some more of these in a later example why this is pretty good. And here, right here, save on your fall travel as low as $39. So they're really going all in on their value proposition, that they're cheap, and you can actually fly for only $39. So another good way to grab the attention is by having your main value proposition have that stand out using text. And in general, what people are what grabs the attention the most is faces. If there's a face on your ad, ideally a smiling face, it just works. Now, obviously, when doing that, relevancy is key. Like you don't want, like this ad is clearly relevant because it's about the gym, and she's actually working out, so it's all relevant. But let's say you are just having a random person smiling on your ad while it's about something completely different. It actually is not the best kind of ad. It might actually still work, so it's always worth a shot. But generally speaking, it's best to have your images relevant to what it's actually about. Now, before I go into some inspiration of what kind of ad you could actually create and how to create it, I want to go into some mistakes to avoid as well. So as I just mentioned, avoid mistakes that don't say anything at all. So here's actually an example that I saw from Hootsuite. And if you look at this image right here, and you wouldn't read the actual text, it wouldn't convey any message at all. Now, this could still work. As you can see, they got quite a bit of social proof. They got 169 people who liked it. So apparently they've run this ad for a little while. However, it's typically best if your image already conveys something. It has some kind of meaning, because as they say, an image can hold 1,000 words. So it's actually a bit of a waste if you're not using it to communicate something, right? To communicate what your value is, what they will get out of your product, or maybe what your product is, or something that you want people to know about you or your brand or your company or your product. So it's really important to do that. Also, avoid obvious stock photos. So if you, as I just mentioned, there's various sites like Pexels and let me just get them here, like Pexels and Unsplash, where you can get stock photos. However, the danger of that is that people try to go for the perfect image, and typically the perfect image, it doesn't work, right? So I just grabbed two random stock photos from one of those sites, just as an example, and I searched for something like business or office, and right here, this one is definitely a clear stock photo. It's too perfect, just a handshake, and if people see that, it screams basically stock photo. It's fake. It's not real, and if it's not real, if it doesn't feel real, people are not gonna it's not gonna work on Facebook. It has to feel real. And this one is a stock photo as well. However, it doesn't feel like a stock photo to me. It's more like this guy is just laughing. It's not very professional. It's like, it's just he's just having fun, and it seems way more realistic to me. And that's why an image like this would already work better compared to a picture like this. So if it's too perfect, if it's too stock photo-ish, then please do not use it. Try to go for the images that are less perfect, that are more showing people how they really are, instead of being all formal and businessy and overly stock photo-ish, if that makes any sense. Also, avoid irrelevant images. So that's basically what I mentioned before. If the image is not relevant to what you are doing, it could still work, but in the end of the day, I would not recommend it. And also avoid low quality images. So if your image is actually ugly, which means, like, for example, a very low resolution or just not properly done, I would not recommend it. Still, it's the first thing they're going to see of you or your brand, so you want to make sure it actually looks good enough. So just as I showed you before, this example right here, it's not actually looking good, it's not well designed. Even if you would go for a red rectangular, which I would not recommend, it's just not well designed. It doesn't look very good, and that's just not the first impression you want people to have on your business. So what kind of image could you actually create for your business or for your product or service? So that's what I want to give you some inspiration for. So the most obvious one is definitely to actually show your product. So this could be a physical product, to actually have a picture or something that actually shows your product. Or if, for example, if you have a digital product, you could actually show them a screenshot of your actual product on the inside. So here's a pretty good looking example. This is actually a software company, and they're showing an image of their product inside of an image, inside of a Facebook ad. What you can also do, and that's also very powerful as well, is to actually show the end result that you're promising. So it's not really about the product, but it's really about the end result, as I've told you about in an earlier video in this very module. So right here you see an example. This company right here, this is a bit of an older app, but it's still very effective. They actually, it's actually a way to improve the driving experience, and they show the actual product, which would fit into this category, but also on the side they actually show like the actual end result, that you can actually measure exactly how much this trip costed and more things like that. So it actually shows them the end result. But also, for example, if your product or service would actually give them more free time, you can actually show people who are enjoying their free time, just as an example, even though that by itself doesn't show your product, but it does actually show the end result. So freedom could be the end result of your product, the end result that you're promising or giving to your audience if they get access to your product. Another one, and this one is particularly effective if you're doing a story-based ad, as I told you before. So, and that is to show yourself. So I've actually run ads as well where I have my own picture, just because I'm telling them the story. And here are some examples of this as well. So here, this is also a story-based ad that I came across, and they're just showing a random picture of their own, and it doesn't really look like an ad because of it. It's not a perfect picture, but it does show them and it does show their faces, and that's why it's actually still a pretty good ad. And here, this guy, you actually may have seen him. He's the founder of AppSumo. He's a pretty well-known entrepreneur in our community. And as you can see, he's just using his own image, his own face. That's it. Nothing fancy about it. But because it's from his word, it's his voice, it actually makes sense to have his own image there as well, because he's using his own face as his quote-unquote brand. So that's also a really easy and effective way of creating images. You don't have to go all fancy. You can literally use your camera, your phone, to create to shoot a quick photo and use that as the image of your ad. Really effective, yet very easy to create. Another very effective one is to show people who are using your product. So right here you'll see a sunglass. You could just have a sunglass, for example. You could show that as an actual product, or you can show someone else using the actual product, and that's oftentimes even more effective, because that way people can actually envision them using it themselves as well. So that obviously goes for a lot of different products, but if you have something that can be used and you can actually capture that in an image, why not shoot a picture of that and use that as your Facebook ad image? Because that's oftentimes even more effective, because that way you will grab the attention because there's a face in your ad, which typically works better, and that person is actually using your product, which does multiple things. It actually shows what the product is for, shows exactly what it's for, and also it's a bit of a social proof to see that others are using it as well. Now, if you've got multiple images, you can actually create a multiple image inside of one as well. As you can see in this ad, this is just one image, just to be clear, but inside this image they actually edited multiple images right in there. They just added a little bit of white space around it, just to make sure that they are different, they look like different images, but it's just one image, and that's also an effective way to create image ads as well. Another one, just as a source of inspiration, trying to bring the creativity towards you here, is to use location-based images. So if you're not sure what kind of image would work best for you, you could even create images based on who you are targeting. So right here, they're actually showing a local image for a certain city, Bristol, which doesn't have to be related to their product, but it's related to their audience. If they're running this ad towards people in a certain city, then those people, they're gonna be more familiar with this bridge, and it's gonna stand out more. So that's another way of how you could actually use something that may not be as related to your product initially, but by making sure a certain group of people is going to see it, it actually becomes relevant to them, and that's why this would also work. So that's a good source of inspiration as well to create location-based images. Although I do want to stress out that don't go overboard on this. As I mentioned earlier on, don't ever forget the 80-20 rule, which means that 80% of your outcome is going to come out of 20% of your income. And if you're going to create like 30, 50, 60 kind of ads like this for all different types of locations, I would not advise it. I would actually advise against it, unless you've proven it for like 2 or 3 cities, and then it turns out to be working really well. Only then I would actually create more. I just wanted to add that as a little side note here, before you go all in on this and create a bunch of ads without making sure it actually works. You could also use text-based images. In other words, an image that mainly consists of text. As I said before, the 20% rule of Facebook means that they don't prefer you to have more than 20% text, but it is allowed these days. And clearly, for example, this ad, it's actually working because it's mostly just text. But as you can see right here, they got 4,000 likes, 19 shares. So definitely they've been running this ad for a while, so it must be working for them. And it's mainly just text. Right? It's mainly just text, so you could actually create an image based on text as well, and obviously also illustrations. If you for example hire someone to create an illustration for you, it could be a good one as well. So it doesn't have to be an actual photo. You could also have something that is drawn and some kind of an illustration. As you can see right here, they have some text, but then overall it's this illustration right here. Now, how to actually create those images, that's what we want to know as well, obviously, because even if you have some ideas about it, you want to make sure to put it into practice as well. Obviously, there are many different ways and many different tools that you can use to create images. Now, obviously there's nothing perfect or there's nothing wrong. There's just many different ways. Like personally, I've been using Adobe Photoshop for well over 10 years, and that's just my go-to tool, even though there's a lot of things that I don't ever need, right? But I also know that most people, they don't have Adobe Photoshop, which is why I don't want to go into that, because every single time, for example, my team helps me out, and they don't have Photoshop as well, and that's why we have various online tools that my team is using, and that's just as good to create Facebook ad images. So there's 2 simple tools that we use quite a bit. First one is Pablo by Buffer. It's actually a free tool and allows you to easily search for various stock images here on the left hand side. So let's say you are into fitness and you search for a gym, you'll definitely find various images that you can use right away, and you can have some contrast on there. I would actually not recommend that, but you can also add some text. You can change it around. You can upload a logo right here if you want that. So if you click on replace, it will actually let you upload a small logo. You can add some various text elements. It's really easy to use actually, and just make sure that you have this size selected, and then once you're done, click on download right here. So share and download, and then download, and it'll actually download the actual image. So we sometimes use that. However, more often we actually use Canva. So once you're